Okay, so for most of you out there, the experience card is your first view you go to. Now, the question on the experience card is, what in the world is it? So if you want to think of it as a quick view of how your information is doing, then this is pretty much where you would go. Now, I'll give details on these shortly, but what I want to do is, I'm not really sure how I want to approach this one, so bear with me as we go through it together, okay? So this is an experience card. This is your perspective. Okay, we'll get to that in a few minutes. This is how it's doing. Obviously, it's in a caution state. These are problems and anomalies, and this poor transactions. Now, we'll talk about this again. These are time, as you see, response time in 1 second, 2 seconds, and 2 seconds and more. And you can actually roll your mouse over it. 315 transactions completed in more than 2 seconds, okay? My slow time. Your slow time is your stalls. So if I remember correctly, the definition of a slow time here is the number of transactions that breached the average response time alert threshold. Okay, so what does that mean? If you think about our metrics, so a metric is a single measurement in time, and in our case, most of the metrics are set at 15 milliseconds, or in milliseconds, right? So in 15 milliseconds is the average response time, if I remember correctly. And if I hit that 3 times, which would be 3 times 15, which is 45, then it's considered a slow. Now, I could be completely wrong because I'm trying to tell you off the top of my head, but technically this is just a slow transaction. Again, it's a number of transactions that went over the average response time, okay? Now, a fail, what is a fail? So a fail is either an exception or an alert that you've created, okay? So we'll get back to those later. So keep that in mind. This is a pretty good view once you understand what the view is. But let's talk about, maybe if we go down the path of creating one, then maybe it will make sense. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna group by our agent domain, okay? And then we're going to group by, see, I like domain, and then I like type. And then on the last, you don't have to have 3, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe hostname? No, that doesn't make sense. But you can have as many of these attributes as you want. So it's basically what you're doing here is you're mapping on the attributes. Now, if I go up here to add my filters, I will notice I want my filter by my follow transaction. I want my database filter. I'll see if it picks up. Yep, okay, it picked them up. And I also want to filter by my web services, okay? And let's make sure it picks them up. Did I do transactional on that one? Let's just make sure. Follow transactional path. And what we're going to do is web services, okay? And so, and that is included in my experience node. So I can delete those or so forth. The other view you want to look at is, what do I want to see the most? So this is average response time. Let's get rid of these up here. And there we go. So this is the transactional. The average response time looks like, now there's no data going through, that's one of the problems. That would be the one that looks like the zigzag looking line. And then the histogram is what people are used to seeing. So we'll go ahead and stick with that. Now we have to give it a name. So we'll call it Tim's Demo. And you can make it public or you can keep it private to yourself. I'm fine with making it public. Now, what that gives you, again, we'll talk about this stuff in a few minutes. This is my overall, right? This is my overall health. This is based on what we call your health score. This is your response time histogram right here. And then again, this is your slow and your errors. And again, we'll talk about that in a few when we get to it. I can click on my poor transaction. Oh no, I'm sorry, this will highlight. This, what I meant to click on was this thing. So here's my average response time. So I have a little bit of data going through. Not sure why. Maybe it's because I started doing TDM. I do have an error, which is really cool because hopefully we can go see that. And then, of course, if you highlight, this opens the analysis notebook. I'll do a video on triaging, and we'll talk about that then. But what I did, if you click on this one, now it starts going into the categories that you picked. Okay, so here's domain. If I go one more. So here's the agent, because that was the next one I picked. Okay, here I have default and beam login. And if you notice, we're getting information up here. And I'm going to cover this whenever we do how to fix problems, basically. But this breaks out what it found earlier, and we'll talk about that. Okay. So you should have 1, 2, 3 problems, and I should have 6 down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So that's how you figure out what those are. But let's go ahead and go one more. Oh, you know what? I didn't go one more. I only went 2. So my bad. Because I deleted the other one. So anyway, so that's kind of the experience cards. I know this video isn't as detailed. Oh, and this is called breadcrumbs, right? So you can get back. I can change these as I go. No, I apologize. These are the breadcrumbs. So I can, but this, I can change this as if I want. So let's say, you know, agent type's not working for me. Let me go ahead and view application. Even though I didn't select application, it can still break it down by application. So I can see web view, nice, has some problems. Being logged in has a few. Yeah, so I was trying to see if that TDM thing was in there, but I don't see it. Anyway, so let's go back to the top. If I go back to my complete parent, these will load. If I need to modify this, it's just as simple as clicking the gear. Okay, I can edit the card, and I can modify however I want. So if I want to remove these 2 filters, then I'm good to go. Or I can just, you know, delete the card. So anyway, so the concept of the cards is very simple. Did I delete it? Sorry, I was talking. Okay, there we go. So the concept of the cards is very simple, but if you noticed, it goes back to that whole concept of I don't know if I have live. There we go. It goes back to that whole concept of putting your perspectives and your attributes together to work for you, and then creating this quick little view here to help you summarize how things are going. So in essence, if you think about it, it was kind of the way we did dashboards in the past, but it kind of sums it up into this quick little card. Like in the past, we would build these dashboards that would start from the top and give you a quick overview, and you can just log in and say, hey, how's everything going? And then you can click in to get your details. That's kind of what this is. Because I have my alert status here, or in this case, it's caution, right? I can see it right away. I can see the problems and the anomalies. Anomalies. I'm the worst person to pronounce that for you. And then if I click into it and say, you know what, I want to know more about this one. Let's get all the way down to a good view. So who's all right, this one? So now this is giving me to what we call, it's like a detailed summary view. So here I can see some detailed response views. I can actually see what these poor transactions are. 10 transactions, 2 were poor, 11 were poor, right? I can dig deeper, but I don't really want to get into that yet because that's more about triaging, okay? And I do want to keep that separate. Just think about, again, this is very important based off of your filters that you've created, okay? Personally, I didn't mean to open the book. And well, you know what? Real quick in the book, again, you still have this as long as you go. Think of the book as your workspace, okay? That's where you're going to go to figure things out. So it's a very short video on cards, and I keep trying to add more to it. I don't think there's any more I can add to it. It does make sense once you start playing with it. These are called experience cards, okay? And they're just a summary, basically, of how your environment or how your application is working. And you want to build them based upon your, like you want to separate them by universes, attributes, maybe character type. That's the kind of stuff you want to do. And you want to make sure you build it carefully to make sure it works extremely well for you. I hope this helps. And if not, please reach out to me, Tim Higgins.